city, not only in FDR Park. Devastating loss of 441 trees, including irreplaceable heritage trees, but also at Vare, Murphy, Kingsessing, recreation centers, and anywhere that the city has used or plans to use synthetic grass. The dangers of this toxic turf have been chronicled locally in the Inquirer and in publications worldwide. Synthetic fields will introduce PFAS or forever chemicals into the ecosystem, increase the extreme heat in a city already suffering from heat island effect, and leach microplastics into our water system. And their 8 to 10 year lifespan refutes the claim that they're a long-lasting, cheaper alternative. The destruction of trees at FDR Park, Cobbs Creek, and other parks in the cities undermines the Philly Tree Plan, which states that the preservation of our existing canopy is the primary goal. It also contradicts the Philadelphia Climate Action Playbook, which recommends using nature as a solution to remove carbon pollution while managing heat and stormwater runoff, and ignores the Philadelphia Tree Canopy Assessment, which found that Philly lost 6% of its tree canopy between 2008 and 2018. Mayor Parker can't continue touting a cleaner, greener city while endorsing the removal of our heritage trees and the destruction of natural green spaces while cheering the creation of plastic poison playing fields. That's not a green agenda, that is greenwashing. We want clean air and water, and we want natural green grass and trees. Recently, on social media, Mayor Parker identified herself as a climate mayor. Well, Mayor Parker, when it comes to making Philadelphia clean and green, you've talked the talk. Now, we're challenging you to walk the walk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Russell Zerbo with the nonprofit Clean Air Council. Philadelphia Parks and Recreation still has time to make a choice between grass and plastic in FDR Park. Parks and Rec could easily alter its plan to contract with a private artificial turf developer to construct 12 multi-purpose playing fields that haven't even been designed for or contracted yet. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has also not yet approved Parks and Rec's most recent application to construct 5 of the playing fields, and official permit proposals for the remaining 7 artificial turf playing fields have not even been submitted yet. There is plenty of time to change course and simply choose grass over plastic turf that almost assuredly contains forever chemicals known as per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, which are particularly dangerous for children. Thank you. FDR Park is almost entirely located within the 100-year floodplain, and the park serves a vital function buffering South Philadelphia communities from the waters of the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers. In the currently proposed plan for well over 20 acres of artificial turf playing fields, Parks and Rec has left the exact design of the water drainage system beneath those playing fields to a private turf developer that has not yet been selected. There is almost no chance that any artificial turf developer selected by Parks and Rec will have the experience designing and constructing water drainage systems for a project of this size, located almost entirely within the 100-year floodplain. However, how water will move through the proposed artificial turf playing fields is especially important because this stormwater will not simply discharge to a sewer system or nearby river. The rainwater that lands on the well over 20 acres of proposed artificial turf playing fields will discharge via underground piping to a newly created wetland within FDR Park that itself is intended to offset expansions of impervious surface at the Philadelphia International Airport. Artificial turf field developers have no business designing a drainage system this sensitive. No business. Finally, Parks and Rec has claimed that the goal of this project is to encourage local youth sports. However, countless parks, pools, playgrounds, and recreation centers across the city of Philadelphia deserve the hundreds of millions of dollars currently being spent on the redevelopment of FDR Park. Given the park's isolated location on the edge of South Philadelphia, this cannot be the most efficient use of these funds, particularly if plastic turf that can endanger the health of young children is used in this development. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Kroll, Dr. Stephanie Kroll. I'm an environmental scientist. I'm here to oppose the use of turf in the Meadows, in FDR Park, and everywhere in the city. It doesn't make any sense that Philadelphia has won a lawsuit against the producers of PFASs to only then implement them in the places where our most sensitive public will be. Children and older people and families trying to enjoy the outdoors, and instead of being on grass and in nature with trees, to be on toxic plastic turf. PFASs, and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are known as forever chemicals because they do not change and alter in a natural environment. Therefore, as soon as they are put down, they will stay where they are and be transmitted to people and to waterways. And they will affect our wildlife as well as people trying to recreate in streams, in grasses, in turf, anywhere around. I agree that the city needs to make better use of this type of funding to really produce change in the park citywide, and not just in a place where it's unclear where the profits from soccer tournaments will go and whom they will benefit. So please stand with us as we oppose the use of PFASs and the changes proposed to the Meadows in FDR Park and citywide. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Fred Stein. I represent the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. Filling of the floodplain at FDR Park and covering it with plastic, artificial turf, sports fields is a bad idea. This isn't some new revelation. This is science and public health facts. Protecting our floodplains help reduce flooding in Philadelphia. Federal government, state governments are spending millions trying to reduce flooding, particularly in South Philly and Eastwick. And here we are clear-cutting trees and filling floodplains. We already know this. This isn't a revelation. Protecting our floodplains helps protect Philadelphia's drinking water supply and the water quality of the Delaware River, where Philadelphians get their drinking water from. We already know this. Protecting our floodplains and all the natural vegetation that grows there helps protect the air we all breathe. We already know this. Protecting our floodplains is critically important at limiting the impacts of global climate change. Again, we already know this. Anyone half paying attention to information coming from the Philadelphia Water Department, from the Office of Sustainability, from the Office of Emergency Management already know this. Anyone reading the scientific research from Drexel, from U of P, from Villanova, and many other universities in the area already know this. Anyone reading the newspaper articles about the impacts of artificial turf and filling floodplains, they already know this. Why is it that Mayor Parker and Councilman Johnson appear not to know this? Making the loss of the floodplain worse for the city's plan is covering it with plastic artificial turf. Children playing on artificial turf exposes them to dangerous chemicals such as PFAS. We already know this. As artificial turf wears out, it contributes to microplastic pollution flowing into the Delaware and out into the Bay and out into the Atlantic Ocean. We already know this. Yes, the city's children need high quality and safe places to play organized sports. No one argues that. But we shouldn't be destroying dozens of acres of woodlands and meadows situated in the floodplains to provide those sports fields. Those woodlands and meadows also provide high quality, safe places to play, and not only for the city's children, but also for their families and our senior citizens too. Many large trees have already been lost, and much of the floodplains have been damaged, but it's not too late to change the direction. The Delaware Riverkeeper Network urges Mayor Park and Councilman Johnson to reduce the footprint, the amount of development in FDR Park from these fields. And we urge you not to use plastic artificial turf to cover them. Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Maurice Sampson, and I am the Eastern Pennsylvania Director for Clean Water Action. I want to talk to you for a minute about a very poisonous chemical under the rubric of the name PFAS, of which there are as many as 4,000 different variations. PFAS is probably the single most toxic element that man has ever created. And by created, I mean that. It is a man-made, created element. It's in our Teflon pans. It's in the foam that's in our cushions, in our pillows. It's in virtually every baby product that you can buy. It's in women's feminine products. It's in cosmetics. And yes, it's also in artificial turf. This material was originally developed as a coating on army tanks. It made the shells bounce off of them. But when they invented this stuff, they wanted to figure out how they could sell it more. And the first place they sold it was in Teflon. Teflon is PFAS. That old Teflon pan you have at home is dangerous. It's in your rugs, it's in your carpets. And they want to put it it's in the turf too. It has already been condemned by scientists around the world. It's in our drinking water, by the way. It's everywhere. Right now, Clean Water Action has legislation in Harrisburg, House Bill 2238, that would ban the use of PFAS in all these common products, including artificial turf. We already have support for this legislation from over half of all the Democrats in the legislature, and many Republicans too, by the way. Oh, I also forgot to mention, it's in firefighting foam. And it's in our friends that live up in Warminster who have been heavily impacted by this. Now, they used to preach this stuff was so safe that when they would do a test and they would spray this foam, they would let the children play in it. Okay? It is highly toxic. It is toxic in parts per trillion. One eyedropper in a 25,000-gallon pool is enough to poison that whole pool. An eyedropper. I have good news and I have bad news about where we are right now. I got an email yesterday. Well, when they go to buy this artificial turf, they will put out a bid for people to bid on the opportunity to provide that product. I got an email yesterday because I made a suggestion. I said, really, if you're really going to tell me it's not poisonous, then what I want you to do is put in the spec that company, all the bidding companies, have to provide a scientific report that says there is no PFAS in this product, and make them pay for it. Correct. So if the language is in the bid, then we shouldn't see any bids. And if we get a bid, then we have a report that we can look at to say, really? What one of the 4,000 different ones that is in your product? Because one of them is there. This is what is in all waterproofing. Your raincoats, your rain boots, your rubber suits, anything waterproof has probably got PFAS in it. I'm going to make you all go home now and look around. I am quite sure at what it is I'm living with, because we are exposed to this in such a way that is just terrifying. The good news and bad news I have to tell you is they put that provision in the bid spec. I got an email yesterday saying, Maurice, we're going to put it in. Now, I wondered why I got it yesterday, but then I realized it's probably because this event is today. So the good news, it's in there. The bad news is I haven't seen the spec yet. So this is only part one of the story. I'm hoping when they see this, they will send me a copy of that spec so I can read what's there. So if that comes through, either we're not going to get any bids, or we're going to get a bid and we're going to have a report and we're going to have something else to work with. We're going to beat the turf. The turf is not going to happen. The turf is not going to happen. Believe that? The turf is not going to happen. And that's my news today. Let's win this thing. Hi, my name is Dr. Walter Sue. I'm speaking today on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility in Pennsylvania. I'm the former health commissioner of this great city of Philadelphia and the past president of the American Public Health Association. And so I am very invested in public health issues. Today I want to express my strong recommendation that we not use artificial turf in FDR Park or any park in our city. Of interest to policymakers is the cost of artificial turf, which is between 15 to 20 times that of per square foot to install than that of grass sod. So even if we didn't even talk about PFAS, from an economic perspective, it makes no sense to put in artificial turf. And artificial turf only lasts 8 to 10 years, and it must be constantly maintained and replaced. Its disposal is considered a toxic waste, requiring a special landfill, and it contributes to the problem, as pointed out, for our plastic waste. For far less money, you can install a new grass field every year without all the inherent problems of artificial turf, and you would still save taxpayer money. In fact, you can spend the money on local small businesses who live here in Philadelphia and who can maintain the fields with real grass, which they can handle. Artificial turf has per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, otherwise known as PFAS, a forever chemical which is embedded in the manufacturing to give the fake blades of grass from sticking to each other. There is no way in which you can manufacture artificial turf without PFAS. PFAS, even in low doses, has been associated with a variety of problems according to the CDC, including kidney and testicular cancer, preeclampsia in pregnant women, liver enzyme changes, lower antibody responses to vaccinations, lower birth weight babies, and increased cholesterol. In their July 25th, 2024 article, the Inquirer invited Field Turf, Shaw Sports Turf, and Sprint Turf, the three artificial turf companies that the city is considering using, and asked them for samples to be tested. Tellingly, none of them responded. I assure you that the City Council does not want to install artificial turf, have parents tested then for PFAS, and then face the prospect of having to rip out the turf over community objections. Equally important in our changing climate, artificial turf is hotter than grass, and there are cases of skin burns and slide injuries from falling on hot turf. And considering that players are stomping all over the field, the combination of PFAS, VOCs, and heat ensures that players will be breathing in these particles from the turf, which is not recommended. Interestingly, Major League Soccer requires only grass for its playing fields. Citizens Bank Park uses Bermuda and Kentucky bluegrass for its field. The NFL Players Association only wants to play on grass. If we want to grow our own Bryce Harper and Jalen Hurts, we should train them on real grass, which is what the professionals use, and what we should be using only here in Philadelphia.
Thank you, everybody. That wraps up our speakers. And now we're going to process into City Council, those of you who have the time, and try to get through security into the meeting, which starts at 10, and address our council members directly. Thank you so much for being here. Please, if you have not already, please call Council Member Kenyatta Johnson, the president. This FDR project where 16 synthetic turf fields are going in is in his district. He has the power to change it. Also the mayor. We have flyers here. If you want any more information, the numbers are there. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, so we just saw a rally about basically trying to oppose the construction of artificial turf. Has there been any progress against the construction of the turf, or can you just give a little more of the background about it?
Well, I think we've all known the facts for quite a long time. Artificial turf is plastic pollution. It's microplastic pollution, it's PFAS pollution. It's harmful for people and for animals. And we don't understand why the Conservancy and the city of Philadelphia, from the mayor on down, especially Kenyatta Johnson, are not reevaluating. You know, we didn't know that in 2019. Now we know. So the fact that here we are 5 years later and complete interandians, a stubbornness that makes simply no sense if you care about public health. As far as changes, no. What we've seen is there are several rebuild projects going on around the city. They are moving forward with artificial turf, even though at Murphy Rec Center in South Philadelphia, as reported in the Inquirer, the turf was found to likely have PFAS. The testing was provided by the manufacturing was completely wrong to actually capture a true PFAS test, and the scientist has said they've tested that brand before and it has PFAS. So since then, this happened in March that this article came out. Use of the field has been, there's no public access to that field. So, and we're still waiting on testing. So the fact that the city is actually moving forward with investments, and Philly is a poor city, you know, so not only do we have a greater public health mountain to climb, and we have more environmental justice and communities that are disinvested and harmed, but we are putting this massive investment, I mean, in particular at FDR, $100 million. It's totally out of whack. And yes, it really does make you wonder whether all the city cares about is false aesthetics, right? You know, grass is honest. If you ignore it, if you don't water it, if you don't reseed it, it dies. Artificial turf is always going to look that fluorescent green as if it's being maintained, but in fact, lack of maintenance, and it requires significant maintenance of artificial turf, is really harmful to young bodies and as well as to the whole environment. And, you know, the speakers...
So is it thought right now that this might be related to the FIFA, the Cup coming to town, and all sort of the bigger world of sports, that they might have wanted artificial turf? Has that been discussed?
Yeah, the irony is that FIFA does not allow any play on artificial turf. In fact, and they have yet, they promised to announce which practice fields would be used around the city in spring of last year. They have still not announced that, but FIFA will play on it. And so if FDR is to be used, it will have to be grass. And the NFL, you know, the Football Association, National Football Association, also, they don't want to play on artificial turf. And, you know, pound for pound, this is actually one of the worst products. When you talk about plastic pollution, artificial turf is a worse offender. It off-gasses methane. It is non-porous, so the whole scheme of we need to install this stuff because of flooding issues, really all they're doing to mitigate the flooding is they're burying the wetland. They're raising the ground 7 feet, so they hope it won't flood. But, you know, it's...
So just to back it up for a little context, so you've been involved in basically the back and forth around FDR Park redevelopment, and some of that was spurred by expansion of the airport, and sort of their argument was if we expand the airport near here, we can sort of refurbish part of the park and claim it's wetlands and change it. Can you just sort of talk about how that leads in then to this field construction and what's been going on at the park in the last year or two?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is two things. One is as you said, federal law requires that if you destroy wetlands in one spot, you must replace them elsewhere. And so the city is moving money from one pocket to the next. The airport, which is city-owned, is in fact just giving it to the Parks Department and investing that in parks. We lost 30 acres of mature trees, and that in itself, it's going to take decades. We hope the wetland that they manufactured there succeeds, but it'll take decades to provide the same environmental benefits of what that area already did. And as for the sports things, You know, it goes to the privatization of Parkland. I mean, 12 multi-purpose football fields. That is almost, and 4 artificial baseball fields. That is almost 25 acres of just plastic turf, as well as 70-foot lights. It's a massive impact on FDR Park. But, you know, as we've been fighting this very local issue, we're South Philadelphians, but when the more we read into turf, it really became a major, a core issue in this battle to stop the development of the west side of FDR Park. And the natural next is, well, if we are so vehemently opposed to this awful toxic product being installed at FDR, well, naturally, because we care about public health, we care about kids, and we care about the environment, heat island, pollution, all that, then quite naturally, we must call for a citywide ban on artificial turf. It's been done in Baltimore, it's been done in multiple municipalities on the East Coast. Boston is a great example. Another poor city. If they can do it, surely we can. It's really just a question of priorities.
And so also, because it would be an artificial surface, there's an argument that that would make the flooding worse. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely. I mean, the irony is the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, actually classifies artificial turf as non-porous. So the claim that they must use artificial turf, which they claim in FDR, instead of grass because of flooding concerns, it's just, there's a lot of greenwashing, and quite frankly, every week more evidence comes out against PFAS, right? We find it in the brain, we find it in the placenta. You know, it's now we know that it's absorbed through the skin. You know, when those kids are rolling around or fall during a game, that poison is actually entering their bloodstream through the skin. So the fact that the city has not moved an inch, has not even, you know, formed an advisory committee, research it, you know, if the wealth of evidence is not enough, what are you doing to get closer to the truth? So I think they're really ignoring the people, and the people can only think that this has got to do with money and short-term convenience. You know, if the mayor and Kenyatta Johnson, if they only care about showing up for ribbon cuttings, well, then obviously they don't care about the rest of us. And they don't care about our future, because this is very much, you know, with the climate crisis, we simply can't afford to be destroying mature canopy and habitats in favor of plastic fields. It's just beyond dumb, and we will pay for it. We will pay for it heavily. And so all these rebuild projects that are happening in disadvantaged neighborhoods that are not invested, they are actually going to make those environments, those communities hotter, and they are putting those kids who are already adversely impacted health-wise, you know, asthma, etc., by the pollution in those communities. It's going to just be compounded. It's really, it's just mind-numbing, and one can understand why people lose faith in our leadership, because it's really, the system makes no sense. It's not for the people.
So this is the opening day of, I guess, the fall session of the city council. So there's been a number of protests here, is that correct?
Yes, there's a housing protest. I mean, basically it's the first day of city council. They're back from recess, and yeah, and it's I mean, getting to speak, by the way, in city council, a little bit of a challenge, because you must address an agenda item, and it's almost as if, I don't know if it's purposeful or they just did nothing over the summer, but there's no significant bills. People are supposed to, like, choose one and basically kind of fake a connection in order to even speak on the issue.
But right behind you, I see people with end traffic deaths and Philly bike action. So that's been another hot subject in the city, is the deaths of bicyclists as well, which is an environmental design issue because it's caused by the design choices.
I'm a cyclist, and I use FDR Park for cycling. I moved to South Philly a year and a half ago, discovered FDR Park. It's like, this is great, riding along, and then next thing I know, they're going to tear it all up on me. You know, I don't want to be riding past toxic fields. I'm 67. I'm doing everything I can to take care of my health at my age, and the last thing I want is something that maybe affect my water. And my understanding is that can even get in the air after time. They took away these beautiful, sort of bike trails through the woods. They cut down all these beautiful trees that are heritage trees, all to make a buck.
Do you want to give your name?
Yeah, my name is David Gibson. I'm actually with an organization called Peace, Justice, Sustainability Now. But I'm a plaintiff in a lawsuit that tried to block the development of this until we had a chance to take a look at the plan and come up with a better plan. And they wouldn't even give us our day in court. They threw us out of court.
Yeah, we just, we were basically kind of wondering, is there any other important context to take away, or, what's been happening in other cities around this substance, and kind of like is the picture changing, like outside of Philly, about any of this right now?
Well, I mean, where PFAS is concerned, that's becoming more and more a household issue. There was the film Dark Waters that actually talks about this. And, we've known this stuff is dangerous forever. When the folks at DuPont developed it, they even put it in cigarettes to test on their employees who died smoking them. And the Robert Belay, who wrote that, in Discovery, they gave him a warehouse full of things when he sued. He went through everything. It's a complete history. This turf issue and this parks issue just gives it another spotlight. But this toxin is incredibly poisonous, and eventually a percentage of the population is going to die from a related disease because it's in all of our bodies. They have found it in the snow in Antarctica. It's all over the world. And this is a human-made artificial product that basically won't break down.
And these are perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's why they use the acronym PFAS. Is that correct?
Yeah. And really we should be talking about the class of PFAS products, because when we say PFAS, they can say, well, nothing's in there, and we're only talking about 2 or 3, but there are thousands of them. So we really need to be talking about the class of PFAS products if we're truly about getting rid of this stuff. But an issue like this puts it on the high profile. The city is not interested in poisoning people. They want this in there because they perceive it's going to be less work, it's going to cost them less. That's the reasons why. So when I went and talked to the Fairmount Park Conservancy about it and looked at it all over, I said, well, why don't you just put it in your bid spec? Now, I want to see the spec, because if it says class of PFAS products, there either will be no bids because you do not want your product from the city of Philadelphia to say through the study, because you're going to lose business other places. So they're going to try and get around that. If the city gets no bids, then we know that it's right. If they get any, we're going to have them too, But I'm clear from the people I've talked to, they are looking at this from their perspective, and they don't see it as a negative. But, I think that this particular issue, giving it this spotlight, will raise the issue everywhere else. The Enquirer even did articles on this.
So Teflon was an example of one of these chemicals, right, which was in that movie Dark Waters,
Exactly
correct?
Right.
So Teflon is sort of the most publicly known of those substances?
Teflon, when they first started marketing this product, that was the initial product. Why? Because everybody's got pans in their homes. Why? Because nobody likes stuff sticking on their pans. So they put it out there selling it that way, and they sold it big time. But it was only the first product. It is in so many products. It's in thousands of products, because it's become almost like a household thing. But they've known this stuff was poisonous since the 60s. But it was about the money that could be made, and there's a lot of money that's been made. And I'm going to bet you when the push comes to shove, because that attorney is winning his cases now. And eventually, it's going to become a pariah product. And this campaign is only going to help accelerate that.
And where could people go to kind of learn more, or, especially particularly about these health effects? Where would you suggest people look for more?
Well, of course, I'm going to say go to cleanwater.org on our website, and that'll get you a first path into that. I think also if you just Google PFAS, you're going to also find a whole lot of it. There's even a group of scientists who used to work for DuPont who have organized on this one. But I tell you, I've worked with some of the scientists in DuPont who did some of the research. And the researchers are solid. I'm more concerned with what happens after they finish their research, what happens when it gets to their PR. Because they're not going to promote something that's going to bring them down. But, I think we have to be really careful about painting a brush of everybody who works for one of these companies. Because I find when I have my backroom, my off-the-cuff conversations with them about their research, I find their research to be very valuable. It's a question of how it gets used and how it gets promoted, and just how far it will go. Right now we have something called chemical recycling that they're pushing. It's not real, but they've actually gotten states to make it part of the recycling laws, but no one has done it. And it's a way of trying to protect their plastics. And guess what? If they could do chemical recycling, they wouldn't want to do it because it would mean not using the oil products. Okay?
Mess up the rest of their supply chain investments.
They are not interested in using over. The motto should be, use it up, we'll make more. That's really what it's about. There's no such thing as plastics recycling. Plastics are chemicals. They're not materials. I've been in the game. I was the city's first recycling coordinator. I've been in the game for 54 years. And it amazes me how we used to talk about recovery of natural resources. Well, guess what? Oil is not. Okay? It's a fossil resource. It is not a natural resource in that. But we've lost that nomenclature, and they have driven the change of that because we tend to adopt whatever language they put forward that comes out of their PR offices. And we really have to get smart and understand that it's a long game and that it's about the economics. And once people stop buying PFAS and putting it in their products, the whole thing's going to go away. You know what I think we should do? Forget the legislation. What I think we should do is argue that for labeling, this product contains PFAS. We're not stupid. If we know PFAS is poisonous and we see this product contains PFAS, what will happen is the companies that are using it do not need to have PFAS. They can still have their product without having it. And PFAS will disappear in the marketplace. And then, and only then, will it be gone. Okay?
Do you want to give your name again?
My name is Maurice Sampson. I am the Eastern Pennsylvania Director for Clean Water Action. We're based right here, and we're actually a national organization. We have a chapter in Philadelphia.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to add today?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing this out there. I'm really glad that you guys are here. Obviously, the regular media is not here, and the message has got to get out. Once people understand this, they're going to not want it, and it's going to be over.
Well, we've been working with Save the Meadows. I'm an environmental scientist. I have a PhD in watershed ecology, and it's been really important to me to preserve the natural state of the meadows. We know it used to be a golf course, but it has rewilded, and it has quickly converted back into a natural state that is really moving in a great direction. So we've been really passionate about trying to preserve the land that is there, the wildlife that is there, the trees. We've already lost a whole lot of heritage trees, but the construction of PFAS turf fields is really concerning because it removes even grass, which isn't the best ecosystem, but it introduces people to so many levels of risk, from the cancer-causing agents in PFAS, the hot temperatures, skin burn, and then also contaminates our land and our waterways. So we're really trying to push for grass fields if they're going to do them, although we would really rather they put the fields elsewhere where there are already cleared areas without healthy ecosystems. And also a citywide ban on PFAS to keep our kids safe.
So is there a concern that because the surface is impermeable that could also make the flooding worse? With climate change intensifying, floods intensifying, that making a hard surface that isn't a natural surface could worsen that situation?
Yeah, for sure. The turfs are an impervious surface, and there's some diagram that isn't well explained in their master plan that shows like retention basins underneath the turf. But they have said that that's not what's going to be put in and haven't given us details on that. But right, the best things to put in place are large trees, plants to soak up the water and to let the area flood, because that's what it wants to do. That's what it always has wanted to do. It's a floodplain, and sea level rise is happening and water is coming in, and that is a good place for it to go rather than into people's basements, into people's properties and businesses.
So for decades, that area, because it's a low-lying area, has been prone to flooding. It tends to absorb floodwaters out of South Philly, would you say?
Right, yeah. That's been an area that floods whenever it rains hard, and the water has nowhere else to go.
Okay. Where would you suggest people can learn more about the interplay of these issues?
Save the Meadows has a website and a Facebook group, and I think it's good for people to go into the FDR Park Master Plan to look at the Fairmount Park Conservancy and what they say they're doing, and to go through and see how that connects with what actual plans come out, because they're wildly different. I think that's another difficult part, is that the Fairmount Parks Conservancy claims to have engaged the public and informed them about this every step of the way, but they give very vague details, and then they say the devil is in the details. So the specifics are so much different from what was in the original plan that people thought was a good idea.
So can you talk about what Delaware Riverkeepers does and sort of what brings you all to the table on this?
Sure. The Delaware Riverkeeper Network, should I look at you? The Delaware Riverkeeper Network is a watershed organization, and we focus on water quality, wildlife habitat, public health issues throughout the entire Delaware River watershed, which starts in the Catskill Mountains of New York and comes down and goes all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. We're involved with this because what happens at FDR Park, what happens on the Shellbrook and the Hollander Creeks, that flows into the Delaware River, and 17 million people get their drinking water from the Delaware River. So it impacts all of them. A healthy, clean river supports good jobs, both industrial and recreational.
And last year there was a sort of a chemical spill in the Delaware River in North Philadelphia, and there was, for a minute, it seemed like we were in serious trouble with the drinking water in the city, which I think shows the vulnerability of the river, would you say?
It clearly does. It was a crisis. People were flocking to the stores and taking cases and cases of drinking water out, only under the potential for our drinking water supply. And the river in the greater Philadelphia area is tidal. So if there's a contamination leak like there was up in Bristol, it flows out and it comes back. It flows out and comes back. Philadelphia Water Department said it would take 2.5 days to go completely out of the system. And so those are people drawing 60% of the residents of Philadelphia draw their drinking water from the Delaware, the rest from the Schuylkill. And if you have to shut off your tap, that means hospitals, universities, residents, industry can't draw that water. That's a major crisis.
So is there a feeling that, that flooding can get worse, that climate change is going to kind of create more issues with both of these rivers around the city, and then that's like another contributing factor to your concerns about this?
It's very much. I mean, we're talking, we continue to chip away, and we continue to provide new insults to the river, to our air quality, to our public health, and it's just continually chipping and chipping and chipping away. And the only way we're going to reverse course on the impacts of climate change is if we stop doing stupid, bad projects like this. I think a critically an important sign that climate change is becoming more and more real is over at Camden County Parks, and I have an image of this on here. It shows, in order to protect your dog's feet while you're walking in the park, be aware that if the air temperature is 86 degrees, the sidewalk can be as much as 105 degrees. Be aware that your dog, what are we doing to our kids who are saying now go out and play on artificial turf, where we know when the air temperature gets 90, 95 degrees, it can be well over 130 degrees on artificial turf.
So this design decision will just immediately create more of a heat island than grass turf would. Is that true?
It's overwhelming scientific data shows that you're playing on plastic. That's going to just radiate the heat, and it's going to cause, and where you think that you'll have fewer rainouts, where you'll have soggy fields, you'll have fewer of those, but now you'll have heat effects and heat cancellations of practices and things like that.
Okay, so there's a concern of, the chemicals could cause health issues, correct? and then the heat issues could also happen, and the flooding issues could happen. Are those sort of like the big three, or is there any other big sides to this that we don't have yet?
I would say those are the big, those are the flooding, the heat island effect, and the contaminants that are going not only into the kids' bodies, everyone's bodies, but also into the environment. I mean, the microplastics that are in our waterways today go all the way up into where polar bears are being impacted, and there's no artificial turf up there, but there's plastics and PFOS and PFAS going into our waterways, and it's going all over the world.
And this is happening in South Philadelphia, which has a pretty complicated environmental history of a lot of different contaminants. And then along the other river, along the Schuylkill River, they found, I think, polyvalent chromium in Bartram's garden as well. So can you just sort of talk about how, that industrial history, why it's risky to be adding even more chemicals into that kind of watershed in the city?
I think this spill recently at Bartram's Garden just shows you how volatile that this history of contamination is and how unpredictable it is. I mean, they're working to clean up that site, but here, without anybody noticing it, the amount of heavy rains coming, it brought the water table up, and it pushed those pollutants right across the Bartram's Mile right into the Schuylkill. We know that those things are happening all over the place. Why purposefully introduce yet another pollution source that we already know is bad? I mean, clearly we need recreational opportunities for kids, because if without that, that's a public health issue. But why destroy one environment to protect another, to provide another?
Okay. Is there anywhere you'd suggest people can learn more about this specific issue as well as the broader health issues?
The Delaware Riverkeeper Network's website is a great website for not only PFOA and PFAS and artificial turf, but a lot of the dissolved oxygen issues that are going on in the estuary, and the Riverkeepers' push to elevate water quality standards. It's at DelawareRiverkeeper.org.
Yeah, I'm Chino. I'm self-employed with my own small business, and that's why I'm here.
Were you here for the protest about the PFAS and the substances and the proposed soccer fields?
No, I was not, but I could be because I'm a local journalist.
Okay, cool. What issues were you here about?
I would say equality. I would say access to capital for low-income individuals.
On a day like this, when the city council is starting a session, we saw a lot of different protests. Like there's a housing group, bicycle safety, the toxins in these proposed fields. So do people sort of try to line up their issues in front of the council when it starts its fall session?
I would say so, yeah. Their voices need to be heard.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to my website, smallbizphilly.com.
Okay. We've been here today at the Philadelphia City Hall. This is the beginning of the fall session of the City Council. This is a beautiful kind of French classical structure that they built. So we've seen a lot of different groups out here today. The bicycle safety groups have been out. There's been some really high-profile killings of bicyclists in the city through traffic incidences in Center City. There's also been a housing group that's been out today, and obviously what we had here today with the PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances and polyfluoroalkyl substances that could end up being added to artificial turf in the city. So we just wanted to kind of bring that to you and talk to those folks that have been involved with that. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate your time today, everyone. If you can support our work at unicornriot.ninja/donate and share our work out, that really helps a lot. Thank you all and have a great day.